Hello, I'm Antonio Mora. This is the newsandnews.com Day in Brief on April 9th at about 7 p.m. Within a week, that's how soon Attorney General William Barr promised to deliver a redacted version of the Mueller report. He repeated in testimony on Capitol Hill that he is compelled by law to redact certain information and that he will color code the redactions to explain why they were made. He said Special Counsel Mueller is involved in deciding what gets redacted. Democrats aren't happy, saying Congress has the right to see the full, unscrubbed report. Possible redactions could gut what is released to Congress and the public. The head of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, has threatened a subpoena, so a court battle seems inevitable. Democrats also scolded Barr for his 4-page summary, with Congresswoman Nita Lowey saying she was taken aback that he reduced the hundreds of pages of the report to only those 4 pages, and that it was more suspicious than impressive. As we pointed out in this video almost 2 weeks ago, comments like that are disingenuous because we knew Mueller was communicating with Rod Rosenstein, Deputy Attorney General, who oversaw the investigation for 2 years, and probably with Barr, who oversaw the tail end of the probe. Today, Barr said, quote, "The thinking of the special counsel was not a mystery to the Department of Justice prior to the submission of this report." No surprise. Contradictory exit polls in Israel mean we will not know who won the election there until late tonight or tomorrow morning. Tonight, Prime Minister Netanyahu and his main opponent Benny Gantz, a centrist, are both claiming victory and saying they are preparing to form a government. Regardless of who becomes the next prime minister, the results are a setback for Netanyahu and his Likud party. Israel's president will need to decide who is in a better position to assemble a majority in the Knesset, so it's possible Netanyahu could remain prime minister even if Likud comes in second, if smaller parties allied with Likud give the conservative bloc a majority. President Trump dismissed media reports and said he has no plans to reinstate his controversial policy of separating migrant families who illegally enter the U.S., but he then blamed the recent surge in migration on not having the policy in place. Today we learned that more than 92,000 people were apprehended crossing the southern border just last month. Trump insisted he's not cleaning house at the Department of Homeland Security to toughen immigration policy, despite the departures of Secretary Nielsen, the head of the Secret Service, the pulling of the nominee to head ICE, and other expected changes. Multiple reports indicate that the mastermind behind the moves is White House aide Stephen Miller, a hardliner who has reportedly been put in charge of all immigration and border affairs. That is being condemned from both right and left. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley said it's, quote, hard for Miller to demonstrate he's accomplished anything for the president. And Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar called Miller a white nationalist. The U.S. has designated Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a foreign terrorist organization. It's the first time the U.S. has given that designation to an entity of another country's government. The paramilitary force answers only to Iran's supreme leader and reportedly controls as much as half of the country's economy. Secretary of State Pompeo accused the Revolutionary Guard of a long list of terrorist acts. Iran responded by declaring the U.S. a state sponsor of terror, and Iranian lawmakers convened today chanting "Death to America." Actress Lori Loughlin and 15 other wealthy parents were indicted today on an additional charge, money laundering. They're accused of conspiring to launder bribes and other payments through a charity run by the mastermind of the scam. Loughlin and her husband have not entered a plea. They were reportedly offered a plea deal of 2 years in prison. A conviction on money laundering carries a far harsher penalty. Yesterday, actress Felicity Huffman said she was ashamed, and along with 13 other parents will plead guilty to using bribery and other forms of fraud in the college admissions scandal. Prosecutors are asking for jail time for all the parents. Under fire for not releasing his tax returns, Bernie Sanders promised he would make them public by next week. He also grudgingly admitted being a millionaire, saying that he wrote a best-selling book. Sanders has ranted against millionaires and billionaires on the campaign trail. Unless he's given massive amounts to charity, wouldn't it be more concerning if he weren't a millionaire? Someone who has made 6 figures for at least 3 decades and whose wife has been a college president would have to be a very careless saver if he weren't. So, socialist or not, since when is professional success a bad thing? Throwing his resume into a pile that's almost 20 strong, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell of California announced his bid for the presidency Monday night on Stephen Colbert's Late Show. At just 38, Swalwell is the second youngest candidate in a crowded field, older only than South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who is 37. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and the head of the IRS testified on Capitol Hill today, but they dodged answering whether they would comply with a request to supply Trump's tax returns. Mnuchin said he would comply with the law. IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig said they are working on a response to the House Ways and Means Committee. The White House, though, has made it clear that Congress will never see the returns. Republican Congressman Mark Meadows says House Republicans would match ongoing Democratic inquiries into wrongdoing by government officials with some of their own, investigating whether FBI and DOJ executives, quote, abused their power to undermine a duly elected President Trump. His comments followed an announcement that House Intelligence Committee ranking member Devin and fellow Republican Devin Nunes was prepared to send 8 criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. New York City has declared a public health emergency and ordered mandatory vaccinations in several Brooklyn neighborhoods after a major measles outbreak in Orthodox Jewish communities there. Civil liberties lawyers may fight the order. Outbreaks have hit several states. Today, we learned this year's tally has reached 465 cases. That's 20% more than in all of last year. The University of Virginia's men's basketball team surged in overtime to defeat Texas Tech 85-77 and claim its first ever NCAA title. It's the first time in 40 years that the championship game featured 2 teams that had never made it to the end of March Madness. A classic tale of redemption, the victory came just 1 year after Virginia made history in a bad way, becoming the first number 1 seed to be dismissed by a number 16 seed in the event's first round. We have all those stories and much more updated around the clock 7 days a week on newsandnews.com, where you'll find all you need to know in one place. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the right of your screen just below this video. Please follow us on Facebook at Real News and News, and follow me on Twitter at @AMoraTV. I'll see you again tomorrow.